Hey, Tom here, FlipAnythingUSA. So on my blog here, I explain how I've built my real estate empire starting at 19 years old, a millionaire by 28, and that was a long time ago. And I've done this by buying and selling real estate of all kinds. Today I'm going to talk to you about flipping lots, but I've done everything. Commercial property, offices, commercial storefront buildings, warehouse buildings, large acreage as well, which is to me is just a big lot. But today, flipping lots. So a lot of people, I don't know why, but people are afraid of land sometimes. They think land is more complicated than a house. A house, I think, is just comfortable for people because you live in one that, you're just familiar with having a house and that sort of thing. But land is even simpler, okay? I mean, let me qualify that a little bit. A piece of land doesn't have a house on it, right? So it's more simpler in as much as it's just a piece of dirt. Now, there's things you need to be concerned with sometimes, like utilities. Is there sewer nearby? Or are you gonna have to put in a septic system to develop? Is there power? Is there power nearby? Is the property landlocked? Sometimes properties so far inland, there's no access. In other words, not on a road. Sometimes you'll see spots of land that are just nothing but 2.5 acre squares or 1.25 acre squares, and there's no access to them. And I've flipped a lot of property in California, and there's just things you got to have in order to make sure that you have access to the property. But to make it simple right now, let's just talk about flipping lots in like just regular residential areas. So let's start with that. There's one area that I probably flipped over 40 lots, maybe 50, maybe 60. This is in California. And these were small lots, very small. They were roughly, golly, I think they're only about 60, 70 feet by about 110. They were about 7,000 square foot lots, but they were pure gold. Now, not every one of them was buildable, so there's things to look out for. But for now, before I get into all that, basically anywhere you see developed homes, you see houses, right? Stuff that was maybe built in the 70s or 80s or 60s, they just cut them up like a press cutting out brownies, right? That's kind of what they look like, brownies in a tray, okay? There's a street, there's property lines, there's a center line between the two backyards, and that's a lot, right? They have, presumably they usually have sewer running down the streets. A lot of times the sewer came later. A lot of times they started out with septic fields, and then sewers came later, and then they tied into the sewer and filled up their septic tank and disregarded the septic tank. Doesn't matter. Doesn't really matter. We're talking about just the value of the property. It's like I tell people all the time, there is no bad real estate, there's just bad deals. And what you're gonna learn about me is I just make good deals, okay? I can deal with property that most people don't want. But even properties that most people don't want, somebody still wants it. Somebody can still use it. Now, the way I mess it up is I pay too much for it. So I don't pay too much for it. I buy everything under market that I buy, and that's what you'll learn from me, and that's what you need to do is you buy under market. You never pay full price. There's no need to. There's always somebody selling under market. Always. Always. Even tonight, I got a call from some yo-yo on my mother. My mother has dementia, and I say some yo-yo. Anyways, he's some guy that's basically data mining and going through the data and finding properties that have been owned more than 30 years and determining whether there's any debt on it, which is a whole nother story. We'll get into that another day. But anyhow, back to land. So, you've seen my property about the real estate barbells. I buy up around the areas I work, and I buy up around the areas that I live. Well, let's just say where I live for now. Okay, there's subdivisions around me. I drive through them all the time. I know where there's what I call a double lot. In other words, once in a while you'll go along and you'll say, boy, they got a big yard, right? Well, it's because when they bought their house, or then when they built their house 30, 40 years ago, say, they got the lot next door. Well, that lot is still an individual buildable lot. And they may have only paid $5,000 or $2,000 for that lot. And today it might be worth $100, might be worth $200, might be worth $350,000. I have lots right now that the houses that I bought, I probably paid $120,000 for them, but they're on double lots. I can cut it in two, and I can get, $350,000 just for the lot next to the, that's part of the property where I have the house that I paid, $120,000 for. But things go up. But anyhow, back to the lot. So what you do is, first of all, you got to know value, right? And I talk about in this every video. You look around the properties in your neighborhood. Well, I'd start identifying those properties that, wow, why do they have such a big property? It's because they have a double lot. So you can look up the address, the two addresses, and you'll figure out the lot in between. And you might find out that it's owned by one neighbor or the other, or it may be completely independent of either of them and just a private owner that just owns it, And those are the people you concentrate on. People that, and even if they own the house next door, it doesn't matter. I can even think about, a rock's throw from here, a property I could have bought for $35,000. That's one of those lots that's worth about $350,000 now. Wish I'd have bought it, obviously. But I still made a lot of money in that neighborhood. But land is wonderful. Land brings no rent, okay? It brings no rent, so there's some holding costs. If you buy it, there's going to be a payment. I've bought many properties for, say, $7,000 to $15,000, and I flipped them for 20, 25, even 30. And in some of those cases, it was because I bought all the available vacant lots that were in an area that everybody was willing to sell. I'm not saying I bought every one of them. Let's just say there's, 10, 15 lots in a huge subdivision, and I bought maybe half of them. And everybody else that owned them, they didn't want to sell them. Maybe they owned the property next door. They were utilizing them with a carport. They didn't want to sell them. For whatever reason, they didn't want to sell them. But I bought up the remainder of the property. And I bought everything basically, in my mind, under market. I mean, I can do the math. I know what a builder will pay for a lot because I can do the math and figure out what they can build a house for. Now, a lot of you can't do that, but you don't really need to know that. You just need to know what a builder's willing to pay for a buildable lot. And you can figure that out. So once you do that, you kind of know, okay, let's just say it's $50,000 they'll pay for a lot. So you know that you don't want to pay more than 30, okay? You don't want to pay more than 30, okay? So concentrate, look for those properties. First thing you do, contact the owner. You might have to look up their name and address. You can do that, the appraisal district. There's other resources online that you can look up things by address and find out who the property owner is. Call them up, or send them a letter or whatever. Get that communication going and find out if they want to sell. And you can ask if they want to sell. You can just make them an offer. Some people would rather have an offer. Some people don't know they want to sell. One of the ways I do it is I just contact them. First of all, I say, hey, would you be interested in selling? And a lot of times it might be, well, what do you give me for it? Well, I know. I say, well, how about 25? I'm willing to give them 30, but I'll say, how about 25? And maybe they'll take 25, or maybe they say they want 50, or full price, or maybe they want more than it's worth. That happens. But you got to ask. And sometimes they're going to refuse to give you a number, so you got to put it on yourself, and you just offer a little less than you're willing to pay for it. It's that simple, okay? Now, if you can afford to pay all cash for the lot, that's great. If you can't, then say, well, how about $10,000 down, or $5,000 down, or $500 down, or whatever you have that you can afford, and however many hundreds of dollars a month you can afford to pay down. You do the math on that. I tell everybody, get an amortization schedule, and just offer fair market interest. 4% is fine, but whatever it takes to make the deal, just do it. If you're buying it under market, you can pay 10% interest if you're buying it right, if you're buying it under market. So look for those lots within a neighborhood, okay? That's one source right there. Find out who owns it, figure it out what the values are. That's not hard to do. Nobody can just tell you. I can't just tell you. I just have to tell you. If a home's worth, if you're in an area where everything's 30,000, the lot's probably worth 2,000, okay? If you're in an area where the houses are $500,000, then the lot's probably worth $200,000, okay, at least, maybe $300,000. So that's on you to figure out. It's not hard to figure out though. Anyways, but you contact the owner. Number one, find out if they want to sell, offer less. It sounds very simple. Sometimes maybe you have cash, you can offer all cash. Maybe you don't. You can offer terms. Now, what I did, I started with very little money, so I would offer $2,000 down to buy a lot for, say, $10,000 that I think's worth $20,000. I might make the deal, so now I got it for $2,000 down, and now I'm making payments on $8,000. Now when I go to resell it, I sell it for $20,000, and I get $10,000 down, and all that does is it gives me my $2,000 back, plus it pays off the $8,000 note, and now I'm carrying a first trust deed, meaning they now owe me $10,000, the remainder of the 20 that they bought it from me for. They owe me 10, and I take that, maybe finance it over a period of 5 years, $200 a month, or maybe I'll take $100 a month for 10 years, and maybe the interest rate will be 5% or 10%. And if I ever want to sell that note, I can. once somebody's been paying you on a note, once they've been making payments to you over a period of time, after a year, that's considered what we call a seasoned note, meaning it's kind of proven itself. So terminology we used to use, I don't know if you use anything different today, but was a seasoned note, meaning it's been paid on a while, or maybe it's been seasoned. Okay, how I look at it. Payments are being made, like a shake and salt on it, but that's the payments over a period of time. So seasoned note. Now, after somebody's been making payments on it for a year, hey, they're probably gonna pay it for the next 10 years. So to somebody else that wants to buy that note, they may give you full value. You're owed $10,000, they'll give you $10,000, or maybe you have to discount it a little bit. So you sell a note where they owe you, on a $10,000 note, maybe they've made payments and now they still owe you $9,500, but you'll sell the note for $9,000. So they're going to get a $9,500 note. They're going to get it for $9,000, and now they're going to get this interest, whatever the interest rate is you set up on it. Okay, that's great. There's that. Then you can go more out in the boondocks where there's more farm and land and larger parcels. Maybe there's still 2.5 acre parcels, and you might see a subdivision where there's like a house every 10 lots. Okay, in other words, there's 10 lots, then a house, 10 lots, then a house. It just never got fully developed. That's also a great opportunity. So, yeah, you can hear the rain pouring behind me possibly. But anyways, so now you're watching, you can go you go out of town a little bit. Now the advantage of that is the properties are going to be cost a little less. Also, probably more than likely, people will carry a note. They'll finance, owner finance. By the way, I have a book, Wake Up and Smell the Real Estate. The details are down below. You can get my book. It's $10. Paperback, I think it's 20, but it's $10 if you get it digital. Which is, if you have a Kindle, I recommend you do it, because then you always have it with you on your phone, and you can go in there, because I have related videos to the type of transactions and the deals that I'm referring to. You can just click on a link and watch the video and help understand the chapter better. That's available on Amazon. Anyways, back to notes and land. The beauty about land is it's a great way to generate income in the form of you realize your profit in carrying notes. I've got a book about that thick, like a big fat phone book. And it's what I have in it is I have a picture of the house, I have a plat of the land, and then I have the note showing how much they owe me on it. Because I have so much, I can't even keep track of it. That's how I used to go, oh, I don't remember this lot. And then I see a picture and a map, and then I go, oh yeah, now I remember. Because each one has a different story. How I bought it, how I got it, when I sold it, every note's, So in those notes, I think some of these stories be, interesting to you, because a lot of times, like I say, I'm buying an area where I know builders will buy lots. So I go in, and as soon as I buy something, I'm flipping it. I'm turning it over immediately to a builder, and I may carry a note, but he's going to go get a construction loan, then he's going to pay off the note, and then I get all my money at once. So land that's popular to build on, already developed subdivisions, number one. Now let's jump over to land in the boondocks. These could be 2.5 acre parcels, very few houses around, 5 acre, 10 acre pieces. It all happens. Those also, there's a market for people that want to buy those. So you'll figure out, you'll see a for sale sign on a couple of properties out there. You see what people are asking. You'll see what somebody gets when something sells. Call this agent. Same way I tell you about researching a neighborhood. You see lots on land. Oh, it's 2.5 acres. Make sure it's not in a flood zone, and these are things you'll learn to ask. It's kind of obvious if there's a creek running through it, that sort of thing. Don't buy anything that has a creek running through it, unless you're buying 50 or 100 acres, because then it's an amenity to the land for development property. But I've seen properties, I had 10 acres that kind of went through my hands inadvertently, and it had a corner to corner, it had a gulch going through it, probably 40 feet wide and 10 feet deep, and the property was worthless. And I bought it, actually I never did buy that one. I was in a position where I helped facilitate the sale. It was a good thing I disclosed it the way it was, which is basically as is, whereas no responsibility. And because I never even looked at it until people came back later and said, hey, this thing's got a problem. And I'm like, well, you said you'd been out there and looked at it. They went out there and they bought it without looking at it. They thought they were, just getting a great deal, and not because of me. They were just came to me. But anyways, long story short is be careful what you buy. You got to take a look at things. So sometimes there's water meters. Water meters necessary to give water. Sometimes there's sewer. When you get that stuff that's out in the boondocks, there's not going to be a sewer. So they're going to end up being a septic system probably goes in. But the builders, that's the beauty of land. When you're selling a piece of land, or when you're buying a piece of land, you usually know more than the realtor does. And so I'll give you some success stories. I bought 70 acres one time. I paid $140,000, $2,000 an acre. I resold it for $520,000, okay? And now there was some real estate fees out of there and stuff, but in the end I made about, I don't know, $380,000, and a portion of that was in a note, and that note paid me $2,450 a month for many years. That's a lot, right? That's a 70-acre lot. That's a big one, right? But I had all kinds of little properties that I bought in the beginning. I'd buy something for $5,000 to $7,000. I'd sell it for 15. Then I was buying lots for 10 and 10,000 and selling them for 20. And some I'd sell for 25,000. But almost always I carried a note until they go to build on it. And then when they go to build on it, then you get paid off cash because the bank won't be subordinate to a first trust deed. Our note secured by first trust deed. So what they do is the bank insists when they go to loan the builder money to build a house, they want that property paid off. They want to be in the first position. If they, if there's a problem, then they have to foreclose on the guy that's building it. Nothing to worry about. You're just turning land. So you want to look at amenities. You want to look at utilities. Is there a water meter? Is there a little flood area? Even in a small subdivision, you might have some kind of weird creek or spring that makes that lot unbuildable. Not likely, but check into it. Check into it. There's a ton of money to be made in those kind of gems, and like I say, just you got more of a discerning eye when you go through a neighborhood, drive in your neighborhood as you come home, or around the neighborhood around your work. You look for those lots, find out who owns them. Great opportunity there. You have more time to wander, go out, out of town a little bit, look for bigger properties, get an understanding what a 2.5 acre and a quarter is worth, what a 5 acre, maybe you might even buy 10 acres that can be subdivided fairly easy, and you might even do that. The rule that I used to follow is pretty much, it doesn't really matter. I mean, you can have a 2.5 acre parcel and an 1.25 acre parcel side by side, and they're going to sell for about the same thing. It's just a buildable lot to a builder, and so you don't expect to get double for a 2.5 acre, what you pay for a 1.25 acre. It doesn't work that way. You might get 1.5 times. So if a 1.25 acre is worth 20, you might get 30 for a 2.5 acre parcel, and that's relative to almost everything. 5 and a 10, etc. 1.5 times. You can go through the trouble of subdividing later on, and that's a great way too. But I'm a little tired tonight, but I wanted to get a video out. But real quickly, I probably made, 20, 30 notes for $10,000, $5,000 to $10,000, maybe some $15,000, where I ended up getting $100 to $200 a month. I remember having about $10,000 a month coming in early when I first started getting into real estate. In a very short time, I had $10,000 a month coming in, just in notes. Handful of people, ran into hard times, stopped making payments on it. Some of those people, I just said, you know what, I don't even want the land back, keep it. And I just let it go. They'd already been paying on me for years. I let them have a few $1,000s. I didn't care. The economy started to get a little bit rough, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to take over the payment, or I don't want to. Sometimes they were paying on the first trust deed that I was paying on. They assumed my first trust deed, and then I created a second, and they were paying me on the second. So, anyways, it's a good problem to have. Okay, so inside your neighborhoods, outside, and it doesn't matter if it's 1.25 acres. Or 70 acres. At 70 acres, I told you I made $350,000 on. I made $2 million, more than $2 million. When I paid $200,000 for it, and I held it quite a while, more than 10 years, and I turned it for like $2.8 million, and that was a cash deal. That was a cash deal. In fact, I turned that and I bought a shopping center with that money. So the main thing is get started. Okay, get started. Start looking. You can decide on land. One of the beauties about land is with houses and stuff, if you don't have good credit, if you don't have, I was young when I started, so it's not that I had bad credit, I hadn't established any credit. So I couldn't just go buy a house, and I was self-employed. Your name's mud when you're self-employed, especially when you're a teenager or in your early 20s. But with land, owner carried is the norm. Owner will carry a note. So that's the beauty of that. So there's no bank involved. The owner that sells it to you will carry the note. So, and people like receiving rent. Or they like receiving rent. They like receiving monthly income, whether it be rent or interest. And just remember this, because rent and interest, they never sleep, right? Like while you're sleeping, you still are accumulating interest owed, your rent still is owed at the end of the month, so it still continues to accumulate. But if you're on my end of it, you look forward to the first of the month, because that's when the payments are due, that's when the rent's due, and that's where I want you all to be. So anyways, give you something to think about. Just want to get a video out. If you got any questions, throw them in the comments and I'll address them. And I'll get more into this later and more specific and other stuff too. But property, fantastic. Vacant lots are a wonderful way to go for all the reasons I am. Owner financing, you can get away with very little down and they'll carry the majority of it. A lot of opportunities. People sell cheap. I don't know, people they sell land cheap. They don't value it at what they sometimes should. And but you let the seller make the first offer, and then you just accept it, or make an offer that that makes you feel safe. And never feel bad about getting a deal ever. If somebody says it's worth 50, you're only going to pay 30 for it. I mean, if you're me, you're only going to pay 30 for it, because values do drop. And one time I think I bought 80 acres. Yeah, I think I bought 80 acres for $320,000. Owner financed. Me and a buddy put $50,000 each. This is the only property that I ever let go. It went back. And what it was, we paid on that thing, and man, the economy took a real hard downturn. We thought, that's okay, we're going to hang on to it. Well, we hung on to it too long. We hung on to it to a point where it was worth less than we owed on it. So we went back to the owners and said, hey, listen, I'm just going to give you the property back. We're going to kiss the $100 grand that we put down goodbye, and it's yours. It's yours. In fact, my buddy actually put $50,000 more than I did. I actually paid him $25,000 to help split the loss he lost. Anyways, that was above my own. So anyways, FlipAnythingUSA. Be sure to share, subscribe, and buy my book. You can get the links down. It's $10. If you don't like it, you can send it back. But believe me, there's millions and millions of dollars. You can make yourself a millionaire with the information that's in my book. I don't make any money. I mean, I really hardly make any money on a $10 book. Trust me, there's not much there. But it's well worth it to you. That's it. So please share, subscribe. Thanks for watching.